I'm such a fool for you. There we go. I'm such a fool for
We're
you.
live.
You've got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? Where's my thing? Did I already open it? I don't see it. Oh, here we go. I had my documents with all the March transits. March. Is anyone here yet, Amber?
No, it's just me watching.
It's always just you fucking watching.
Yep.
I'm such a fool for you.
Might as well put your
Got
PayPal in
me
while I
wrapped around your finger. What? What, honey?
I might as well. Hi, Elizabeth.
Do zombie. In your head, zombie,
There's
zombie,
4 people watching now.
zombie, baby, what's in your head? With your bombs and your guns, with her accent and everything. I love Dolores O'Riordan. It was so sad that she passed away. I used to know about her chart, but I can't remember. And I was a big fan of Sinead O'Connor, too. Nothing compares. Oh, I'm going to send them that song. Nothing compares to you. Is anyone else here, Amber, or is it just Elizabeth?
Well, there's 4 people watching.
What's that, sweetheart?
There's 4 people watching.
Cool. I'm just um, okay. I hate dead air. I should at least be talking. But we can start off and just I could talk about March transits, I suppose. Or, if anyone wants to do charts, we could start off with that. I'm such a fool for you. You've got me wrapped around your finger. Mm. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? Anyway, well, I'll start talking about transits then, because this shit's interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on. And it's all sort of leading up to the eclipse in April. We have a total solar eclipse on April 8th in Aries. Pretty exciting. And this whole eclipse cycle between Libra and Aries is just, it's very, very interesting. It's a different type of energy than we've been used to with the Taurus and Scorpio thing. You see the nodes. Well, I shouldn't be talking about the fucking nodes. I should be talking about March. But the nodes have a cycle of 18.6 years. That's the time it takes for them to return to their same place in the zodiac, which is called nodal precession, right? For the lunar nodes. So, and as the nodes pass through pairs of signs, those eclipses will bounce back and forth between those two signs. And hence those two whole sign houses in your chart, which to me say something about the maturation of consciousness, what I call the pattern of emergence. It has to do with the psychological emergence and hopefully with a degree of maturity that happens, although, you can look around and see that most of us aren't. I didn't really get any maturity until the past year or so. And even then, I'm extremely immature. Growing down, it's what as fifth house North Node people do. We grow down, it's very childlike and very sexual. Yes. But we'll talk about March. What do you think, Amber? Should we talk about March? Is that cool? I can't see the chat right now, so I don't know what's going on, sweetheart.
I think we should because nobody else is commenting at the moment.
Well, that's
But
great.
if you want to chitter chatter for a moment, that's fine. Although if you want to wait, that's fine too.
You don't have to twist my arm to chitter chat.
Whatever works, honey. I don't want to twist your arm.
I mean,
I'm
some
scared you'll
people
suck the
do.
blood out of my veins.
What's that, sweetheart?
I said I'm scared you'll suck the blood out of my veins.
I mean, no, I would never do that. That sounds awful. Anyway,
Hmm.
sorry, I'm just pulling up the chart here. Although this was for the 26th, but we'll just go forward. We'll just go forward.
Thanks
Anyway,
everyone who's joining right now. If you need a natal chart reading, please drop your info below in the comments.
thank you, sweetheart. Anyway,
Date time city.
pardon?
Date time city.
Date time city. Date time city. Date time city. In that order. Date time city. I'm neurodivergent. Date time city. So, but the astrology of March is pretty wild, like I said. We're about to just hit the ground running with things. I mean, today we had the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn all conjunct in Pisces. You see? And what's really interesting about is it coincided with the Michigan primary, right? The primary election. Now, of course, on the Republican side, Trump swept the whole thing, which we knew was going to happen. But on the Democratic side, something pretty wild happened. About 100,000 people voted non-committal rather than Joe Brandon, right? Which that means non-committal gets delegates. I don't want to explain the whole primary electoral process, but this is a pretty strange occurrence. And the reason why this happened is because people were protesting the United States involvement with the slaughter in Gaza, right? Which really is, even the UN has said it's a plausible genocide. So, and that's really interesting that it coincided with that because you have Saturn here, which challenges the authority of the sun, right? And there was this sort of insurgent movement, right, within the Democratic Party. And so that's a contradiction that they're going to have to address. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because of the whole Sun-Saturn thing, you see. But now what's happening, March 3rd, is we're going right in to Venus and Aquarius square Uranus and Taurus, right? That's March 3rd, just in just a few days. And I always joke about this transit, you see. I always call it wardrobe malfunction and perilous pleasures, you see. Because, well, one thing that tends to happen with these transits are lots of drunk driving incidents. And the ones I'm thinking of are primarily celebrities. Like when we had this transit in June 2018, Vince Vaughn, right? The famous actor from Wedding Crashers and some other things, Dodgeball, right? He was arrested for drunk driving and then resisting arrest in LA, right? And then in 2002, during this transit, Nick Nolte, right, the famous actor who you probably don't remember, but he was pretty big in the 80s. He did all these movies with Eddie Murphy called 48 Hours and Another 48 Hours when Eddie Murphy was quite young. And they were funny. But anyway, there's a famous picture of Nick Nolte after he's arrested for drunk driving in 2002, right? And it's a pretty wild picture. And then during this transit in 2006 was when Mel Gibson had his famous incident, right? Where he got pulled over for drunk driving and then started ranting, all sorts of nonsense. He went on an anti-Semitic rant, a tirade in front of police. I mean, Are we surprised? And then as far as wardrobe malfunctions, it's funny how, in general, Venus-Uranus aspects seem to correlate with this, you know? Like, for example, 2004, that was like the big major wardrobe malfunction that saw this term get coined, right? And that's when Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, right? They were, what was that? That was the Super Bowl halftime show, I believe. And part of her outfit, right, came down, exposing her. And Venus was just leaving a conjunction to Uranus at the time. And then in 2014, Nicki Minaj at the VMAs, right, the Video Music Awards, her top almost fell off. And she had to hold it, right, herself during her performance. And this was Venus trine Uranus. And then Miley Cyrus, right, her top actually fell off during a live performance New Year's Eve in 2022. She ran off stage and she put a blazer on, right? And finished the whole show like that, right? And then Paris Hilton, her famous 33rd birthday party that same, well, in 2014, rather. And she wasn't wearing any undies. And she was flashed photographer. Right? It's a whole new different type of flashed photography. But what we see during this transit for us, right? We see chance meetings with new people, sometimes new lovers, new romances, right? New types of relationships, unconventional beauty, finding ourselves attracted to people or things that we're not typically attracted to, right? Or watching our sense of beauty or attraction expand. Yeah. What's going on in the comments, Amber? Anything? Ooh.
Everyone's dropping their natal chart readings, so I'm just writing their info down.
Okay. Yeah, please write everyone's info down. Well, now I'm
I'm
sick.
quadruple checking. So
And
that's I'm ultra focused.
oh my fucking God, Amber, you're always interrupting me. Oh. Anyway. Well, thank you for triple checking. And I see someone here who I really like. I do, I do. I hope you can hear me. Hi, Daddy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And thank you for calling me so beautiful and smart. Thank you. Thank you. I'm such a fool for you. You've got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? Now I'm getting all blushed and flushed. Oh my God. Because Daddy's here for just a little bit. And you're writing down everyone's stuff, Amber. Thank you. I'm sorry for getting angry, but like I was talking and I wasn't really angry. I just was frustrated, you know? So. So. I met someone and they're an Aries with the Scorpio rising. And they're so dreamy. So dreamy. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I'm like blushing because they're watching. And I'm like, I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, I'll get back to it. But I just wanted to say hi, Daddy. I'm all like, giddy and I gotta just, chill out. We can go back to the transits of March in a little bit, Amber. I'll open up Solar Fire and we can start doing some charts.
Okay, sounds good.
Who is number one on the list? I have my stuff up.
Mandy
Mandy Kane.
with an I.
Mandy Kane with an I. Okay. What was the date, please? Date, time, city?
10/02, 1983.
1983. That's my year. Okay. And what was the time? October
9
2nd.
9:44 a.m.
9:44 a.m.
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis. Oh, excuse me. You've got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger? Okay, well, hopefully everyone can see the chart. Is it up, MB? I'll assume it is. It says your screen share is loading. Why is it loading? What does
Yeah, it
that
says
mean?
it's okay. Now it's up. It's up.
It's up?
Hmm.
Okay, good. Why does it still say loading on my thing? So anyway, oh my gosh, Mandy came. My darling. You've got a first house Saturn and a 12th house Sun. You have not had an easy go of things. At least that wonderful moon of yours. At least that wonderful moon of yours is up at the top of your chart, conjunct the midheaven. Which is interesting because your moon it rules the ninth house, right? Cancer. So you've probably been quite attracted to spirituality in some way, or maybe even involved in higher education or religion, perhaps. I wonder if you've had anything to do with university work or, you know, and Venus isn't too far away from your midheaven either. But I wonder if you've had anything to do with spirituality, religion, or higher education work, or even the law, like paralegal, stuff like that. Seeing the ninth house ruler in the 10th house. But you see, the 10th house ruler in the 12th house sometimes indicates people who are therapist types, right? People who everyone tells their secrets, right? I mean, when we see a 12th house sun, it can indicate someone who has to struggle with their own mental health issues, or someone who's, faced addiction, things of that nature. But we also see it with people, right, who find themselves in a healing position with people, or a healing profession, perhaps, particularly with mental health, you see? Or we'll see things like social workers and stuff like that too, which is quite interesting. Or it could be very literally people who work in prisons, or in the prison system. So there is that sort of thing. But you see, when I see Saturn in the first house like this, my first thought is, codependency in people who looked for their value through others, right? Who perhaps were, you know, um, uh, expecting confidence or validation from other people, and sort of getting addicted to that sort of thing. I mean, I know a little bit about that. Please praise me, Daddy. Please tell me I'm your good girl. Right, but we have to find the praise from ourselves and rely on that inner sense of value, which comes from accomplishment. But I imagine you know something about that with the moon and Venus in the 10th house. When I see Venus in Leo, though, I'm like, oh, fuck. I mean, I'm not. I love Venus in Leo. I'm just joking. But I always make fun of Venus in Leo as like this really overly possessive lover. It's like if you're trying to break up with one, you better just like up and leave in the middle of the night, right? Under the cover of darkness, and just leave all your shit there. You'll thank me later, right? Or Venus and Leo sort of objectifying their partners. Look at this new car I got, right? Look at my new boyfriend, kind of thing. Excuse me. Um, but timing stuff. So Saturn's going through, oh, you're Scorpio rising. I really like a Scorpio rising person. So for Scorpio risings, though, Saturn going through the fifth house is sort of the backdrop right now of everything, sort of like the fish and water stuff. But I was just talking about that transit that happened today, right? Which is Saturn and Mercury, the Sun and Mercury conjunct Saturn, right? Excuse me. And in the fifth house, there's a couple of things that pop up. Number one, if you have kids, they could have an ongoing persistent issue that lasts for another year or so. Oftentimes it has to do with school, right? Like, there's an issue with grades or an issue with bullying, things like that, right? But for you in particular, individually, it often feels like a chaotic time. And when life isn't predictable or have any certainty whatsoever, it's very difficult to enjoy ourselves, isn't it? It's very difficult to find pleasure in things, isn't it? So that's, whoa, what you're saying is right. Well, thank you, Mandy Kane. I hope you don't mind me calling you Mandy Kane. And if I know Daddy's gotta go. I know Daddy's gotta go. But thank you for coming, Daddy. And thank you for telling me. They just told me I'm so fucking cute. Like, it's unreal. Like, I'm turning red, and it's not the blush. Oh my goodness. Anyway, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Back to your chart. Oh, they're still here. And I've still got their shirt. Oh my God, I'm a simp. I'm a fucking simp. Anyway, reclaimed Dason. Amber, you'll handle that, right? I think we always just need the date, time, and city, right? Date, time, city. Date, time, city. So, yeah, you didn't give us your city reclaimed. It's date, time, city. Date, time, city, city, city. The last word, city. 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 C-I-T-Y. C-I-T-Y-I. City, city, daytime city. C-I-T-Y. We need your city, homie. Okay. Thank you, thank you. And anyway, back to the chart. I'm obsessed with my love life right now. I mean, it's yeah, no one ever treated me like this before. I was just being a slut. That was what I was doing. Thank you, Salt Lake City. Awesome. SLC Punk. Remember that movie from when I was a kid with Matthew Lillard, SLC Punk? Sort of a depressing movie. C-I-T-Y. I'm so sorry. Ariel. Ariel. Kiss the girl. Every time I see Ariel's name, I think of Ariel. Oh. Thank you, Kimberly. I am a slutty princess. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just not used to anyone treating me well. I'm used to I'm like fucking Saturn girl doesn't have feelings. We don't do that. And I'm not usually a subby bitch. I'm not usually a subby bitch. But for this person, over this person, please tell me. Tell me what you want me to do. Anyway, back to Mandy Kane's chart. SLC is depressing as shit. Yeah, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know. I got some friends there. I had a friend who was a union organizer there and had the FBI come to his mother's house. you know? No feelings. Oh my God. Anyway, Mandy came. Oh, I've got cat hair in my eye now. I swear to God. LOL, I'm also Ariel and sign on as you were singing. Oh yeah. Kiss the girl. SLC, I love you, Real Housewives. Anyway, back to the chart. You see, and the eclipses were going back and forth in 2022 between your first and seventh house. So I imagine, right, that you probably had a big breakup or something that relationship wise that happened in April 2022-ish or shortly thereafter. And then following October of 2022, you started having this existential crisis. There's something about your appearance, perhaps. You know, oftentimes our appearance changes drastically. Someone says also his union organization failed. Reclaimed, you don't know. You don't know what failed and didn't fail. And I don't think you know who I'm speaking about anyway. And if you did know, you would know that he's an amazing organizer and now does organizing in Chicago. But no, they did not fail. But he sure did get in lots of trouble. Is this for you? We're on Mandy Kane, sweetheart. We're on Mandy Kane. This is Mandy. And for Mandy, right? Big existential crisis that you may have started going through after October, right? Halloween of 2022, when that eclipse was happening. So, but now the phase that you're in is the 6th and 12th house. And for me in the eclipse cycle, that's like the cocoon phase where we have to heal after all these big fucking changes, stuff that affects how we feel about ourselves. And the thing about relationships is that they often do. It's like psychological collisions, right? And we get faced with parts of ourselves that we either weren't aware of or were dormant or we hadn't had in a while, you know? And just so everyone knows, there's a queue. Amber has a queue of birth info. God, my eye. Amber has a queue of birth info, and we're going to get to people sequentially, okay? Your man's birthday's on Friday. My person's birthday's next month. Well, I guess so is yours, but, you know. But yours is a Pisces. This person's an Aries. I mean, you know, not that any of that necessarily matters, but I mean, for me, it does. God, the cat hair. You know, Guantanamo Bay, all they should do for torture is just bring cats there and make people wear makeup so they get cat hair in there. I mean, the whole place should be closed. I'm just trying to make a bad joke. You know, that's torture, getting cat hair in your eye makeup. It's just disgusting. Kimberly Ann wants to be added to the queue. But anyway, now in this phase, it's about healing. A lot of shit, I just fucked up my makeup trying to get hair out of it. But anyway, we oftentimes seek therapy during this cycle, right? This cycle of about a year, a little bit more, year and a half. We oftentimes have to address health issues, right? I always say it's a time to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and nutrition and all that sort of stuff, because we start noticing our body falling apart oftentimes. It's having to take care of the physical and mental vehicles, right? After going through some destabilizing events. What was that, Amber? I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were talking.
I didn't say anything.
My bad. Am I out of time for this person?
You are.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next. Let me stop sharing. But Anyway, let me see if there's any last minute things. There's last minute things. I mean, it's a very happy Mercury in the 11th house, but Mars is there too. When you see those guys there, right? Those homies. I mean, Mercury's non-binary, right? They sort of straddle both worlds. But you often see people who could be quite popular, or people who have like a network of friends and associations. And we also see optimism there, right? These people are quite intelligent, perhaps philosophical, and idealistic. Yeah, we see people who are interested in social justice or, fairness or whatever, stuff like that sometimes. And Mars in the 11th house usually makes someone who is very loyal and defensive of their friends. You see people who really hate bullies, although sometimes you do see bullies there, but usually it's people who defend their homies, right? Anyway, let me stop sharing and we'll go on to the next thing. God, my eye. Ugh. Ugh. I'm such a fool for you. Oh, my voice. Okay, who's next, Ambi?
Lucy.
Lucifer. Sorry.
No, don't say that.
Sorry.
Jesus.
Sorry. Lucy. Lucy
August
Love.
26th.
August 26th?
Yep, 1999.
8/26/99. Okay.
Changsha,
Wait, what
China.
time? What time?
11:08 a.m.
11:08 a.m. And the city was what, China?
Changsha. Changsha.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to need, because there's one in Hunan province and one in Guangdong. I wonder if it's Hunan province. Lucy, can you tell us if you are Hunan province or are you Hunan or Guangdong?
I'm looking for her comment. She didn't specify.
She just said people call her Lucifer all the time.
That's so bad. Hey, she's
But
got a Mars in Scorpio like me, so listen, it's not too far out of reach.
she just answered that it's Hunan province. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. What the fuck is wrong with Lucifer? Reclaim says. He was an angel thrown down by heaven. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything is necessarily wrong with Lucifer. It's just that it gets used as the embodiment of all the things humans don't want to be that they are, on their own. And really, in a lot of Western esotericism, like I sort of grew up in the Theosophical Society, you know. And so Lucifer factors big into the mythology with all that, but I don't really go in for that stuff anymore. But yeah, I mean, and if you think about it from a Gnostic perspective, Lucifer represented the enlightenment of the mind, right? The serpent of wisdom in the Garden of Eden that precipitated, right? The knowledge of good and evil, or at least. Okay, so Mandy Kane says, thank you so much. That was really cool. Still trying to process it all and decide how much I relate, how much I might not realize. Well, don't take anything that I say on its own necessarily. I'm just telling you how it looks from me. When I do readings with clients, it's often interactive. And I get I get a lot of good impressions from having conversations with people. That's why I hate doing chart write-ups for readings. I really hate all that stuff. But I hope it was good for you. I hope it was good for you too. Reclaimed says better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. That's from John Milton's Paradise Lost, which is one of my favorite novels, even though I never finished it. But it's about all that stuff. That's a good quote. And Lucifer also says, God, one of my favorite quotes in that. Oh, I have to read this to you all. It's one of my favorite quotes from that book. Um, 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 um. I have to pull this up really quick. I have it on my Twitter. I have it on my Twitter. I'm a twit girl. Milton. Milton. Oh, here we go. Satan says, all is not lost. The unconquerable will, the study of revenge, immortal hate, and courage never to submit or yield. I submit to one person so far, but you know what I'm saying, right? Basically, he's saying that he will not yield, right? Very, oh, and thank you, Ariel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. You're very kind. Okay, anyway, we were going to go to the chart. Where's Lucy? Lucy Lawless. Lucy's a Scorpio rising too. I hope Daddy's watching this because they are Scorpio rising. And they might see some of this. They might get something out of some of this. I don't know. Everyone's different. And nuances in people's charts are going to make things manifest differently because we have different aspects, planets ruling charts or whatever, but they're placed in different houses, you know. So anyway, Scorpio rising again. So the same stuff applies that we talked about with Saturn in the 5th house. The same stuff applies with the eclipses, right? But we didn't talk about Jupiter going through your 7th house. You're having your Jupiter return. It's almost over though. Jupiter's going to go into Gemini in May. Reclaimed says that they are a communist after all. Well, let's just say I've read my fair share of theory, sweetheart. I've read my fair share of theory. My fair share of theory, and I used to do some organizing back in the day. Back when I lived in California, we used to organize a lot for immigrants' rights because we lived right at the border, you know. And so we did a lot of work with that. I used to work with, I never joined PSL. I was in a different organization called FRSO, but we worked a lot with PSL. I mean, we all like co-organized events and things like that and demonstrations, you know. But I had some legit friends who like really, really, I mean, would get arrested during protests and stuff. You know, especially for homeless issues. Because San Diego, where I grew up, is really terrible with the homeless also. You know? Anyway. So Scorpio rising, though. Chiron in the 1st house and Mars in the 1st house. Trump has Mars in the 1st house. My mother has Mars in the 1st house. These are people who tend to have a sense of self-importance. Be very directed. And it's a very happy Mars in Scorpio. Now, the issue, though, is when you have Chiron in the 1st house, that oftentimes indicates another codependency thing. Now, you have Chiron in the 1st house and Saturn in the 7th. Saturn in the 7th usually indicates sort of a hyper-independence, right? We don't like to let people in. You know, it reminds me of like Darth Vader when he's like, I'll do it myself, right? It's people who, you know, they tend to do things on their own, and it's hard for them to get close to people because of that oftentimes. But then Chiron in the 1st house is saying, oh, I really want to find value through other people typically. You know, it really wants validation. It wants to be called a good girl oftentimes, you know? Oh my gosh, you know Masao? I loved Masao. I mean, I haven't talked to him in years, but yeah. Masao. He's such a wonderful man, and he's very brilliant. But I haven't talked to him in years. Yeah, I haven't talked to Masao in years. That's so wild, you know, Masao. Oh my gosh. Gosh. Yeah, he's been active forever. And anyway, brilliant man, brilliant man. And there's lots of other wonderful people, you know. So maybe you do, Reclaimed, know who I was talking about um, from SLC. I was talking about Gregory Lucero. He's so amazing. He really is. He really is. I think he's amazing. He would disagree with that, I'm sure. But, you know. So if you know Greg Lucero, I think he's the bee's knees. Not like my dad, not like that. But he's a very good organizer. And a Capricorn, if I'm not mistaken. But I shouldn't talk about other people in this whole thing. I'm supposed to be talking about astrology, not people that no one else would know. You know? Jupiter, though, going through the seventh house, right? This is your Jupiter return. So oftentimes this does bode well for meeting a new person or a mentor. Sometimes that, you know, a mentor or something like that. But oftentimes, we do meet a new person, you know. Someone says just had to make it extra confusing. Ariel. I gotta stop looking at the chat for a second because I got ADHD, you know. I got ADHD. So, but anyway, someone says, yeah, fuck that bullshit. Get on with your astrology. I know, right? No one cares about Masao here, unfortunately. But Jupiter going through the seventh house is definitely a time where you could have met someone new, started a new relationship, had a renewed commitment, you see? So this could be an exciting time for you. But Jupiter will go into your eighth house, right? Shortly here. Jupiter doesn't like Gemini. But when Jupiter's in the eighth house, sometimes we do get luck from bad situations, right? So someone else's loss could be your gain. Sometimes that's very literal, like inheritance, where someone dies and leaves us money, you know? Or sometimes we get tax refunds, you know? We get a gift. Family might help us out. You know, Jupiter rules what? Your second? Oh. And your fifth, right? So the fifth house is also romance too. So that's quite interesting. You know, the seventh house and the fifth house is where we see partnerships and sex and all that sort of thing. And Saturn is going through your fifth house right now. So it's, you know, it probably seems like it's difficult to have fun or have pleasure or whatever, you know. But the key here is just to roll with things and be a bit more, the key here is to roll with things and be a bit more spontaneous. Because you're not going to be able to plan things out very well, you know. You're just going to have to learn to go with the flow. And then when Saturn goes into your sixth house in Aries in 2026, early on, then the responsibility starts, right? Then you have to start getting things done that you put off during the fifth house stuff, right? Excuse me. And that's when you start taking care of business, scheduling things, attending to your health. Sometimes we actually do have health crises that come up during these whole things. You see? So anyway, any last minute things I want to say? See, Amber has a similar sort of thing, right? Her 10th house ruler's in the 11th house. And oftentimes we see people who need social sort of jobs, you know? Social sort of jobs here. Ariel says, I found out my ex-husband had a girlfriend when Jupiter was in my 7th house. So sometimes the expansion is not fun. I'd love to see what sign that was. I'd love to see what sign that was. And what your rising sign was. So we'll just remind me of that when we get to your chart, Ariel. Anyway.
Ariel is next anyway. She wants a synastry done.
Oh, she wants synastry?
Yes, sir.
I wonder here if Lucy's mom was not a very nice person or had a pretty bad temper. No, reclaimed. We haven't gotten your chart until we get to it in sequence. There's a line, my darling. There's a line of charts. So we'll get to your chart when we get to it. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, I just see the Mars moon square, and I think that mom probably had a bad temper. And because Mars rules the 10th house, which we also associate with the mother being opposite, well, it's whenever you put your stuff in, homie. Amber has it all written down. Mars square. I gotta stop looking at the chat because I keep getting derailed here. Okay. Mars squared the moon oftentimes has a mom with a bad temper, but you'd probably have one yourself or be quite reactive, you know? So, and Venus is square Mars too, right? So you're probably not very ladylike, which is a stupid term anyway. Like, what does ladylike even mean? But these are people who tend to be a bit more socially aggressive. Oh, and, you know, if you're born female, you tend to be a bit more assertive and, quite frankly, masculine in some ways, making men uncomfortable. I mean, that doesn't always happen, but that's one thing we do see. So Mars is going through your 4th house right now. So I wonder if you've been having trouble with your father, a disagreement or schism or something, some sort of conflict with dad. Anyway, let's go on to the next one, right? Ariel. Amber, can you help me with Ariel's information?
Yes. So her birthday is 08 3 1983, 9:26 p.m. Santa Monica, California.
In the city of Santa Monica. So I have August the 3rd, 83, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
And then her
920.
partner is, yeah, 9:26 p.m. And then her partner is October 4th, 1977, 6:26 p.m. in Telford, Pennsylvania.
So October 4th, 1977.
Mm-hmm.
And Teleford?
Yes.
Is that Teleford?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. And it was 6:26 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
What state is that? Teleford.
Pennsylvania.
PA. PA. Oh, Telford, right?
Telford.
Tlford.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. In Montgomery County. Montgomery County. Okay.
Ariel, just double checking, make sure everything's right. Because for some reason your comments disappeared.
Okay. So she's a Pisces rising. So she's got Saturn going through her 1st house right now, which is a tough transit, but it's very rewarding because I mean you either come out of it a brand new person or you don't. You don't come out of it. We get deconstructed, right? And we have to face I came out as trans while Saturn was going through my 1st house. I always talk about that. But we often have to face our own sense of mortality. But we're not worried about transits. We're talking about synastry here. And you have your 7th house ruler, which is Mercury, in the 7th house. And very happy, I might add. Now, Venus is not happy in Virgo, but is in the 7th house, which is sort of cool. But she's not happy. Venus rules what? Your 3rd house and your 8th house. So I would sensitively ask if you ever had a partner pass away. Wouldn't that would be like the worst case scenario. But I just have to ask sometimes about the 8th house ruler being in different houses, you know? Just wondering. I'm not saying that that ever would happen, but I'm just wondering if that did happen ever. Because you're 40 years old like I am, you know? So you've had a little bit of life already happen to you. Do you have Saturn in the 8th house like Amber does? See, yours is exalted though. You were born just a couple months after me, you know. Is the screen showing up, Amber?
Yes.
Okay. Um, anyway, Saturn in the 8th house, though, has to deal with a lot of loss. And oftentimes there's a lot of death that one experiences before their Saturn return. You know, oftentimes a big death that really affects them. But the other thing about Saturn in the 8th house, and bit by bit, I'm doing a whole series of videos about Saturn through the houses, you see. And so Saturn in the 8th house also is about forgiveness too. It's about processing all these things, trauma and all that as we get older. Because oftentimes there is a good amount of trauma. The 8th house, you know, it was originally other people's stuff, right? Other people's resources. But also it became the house of death not soon after, right? It's the opposite house of the 2nd. So we do see financial losses, that sort of thing. We also see people who don't have their own stuff, right? They don't have their own material comfort or whatever. So it's like learning to build that stuff up through your life. But the ultimate lesson, I guess, if you want to, I sort of glib to call it a lesson, isn't it? Right? Like, who the fuck is the teacher, yo? Right? But the ultimate sort of understanding that comes out of this is about letting go. Unfortunately, Saturn in the 8th house is about learning to let go. And really, that's what death is, you know? St. Paul said, I die daily, right? And he didn't mean he was actually dying. He meant like a psychological death to how he was before and who he was before. And the thing about this placement is it brings up shit from the past all the time. Now, you can see people who are like healing types of influences in other people's lives because they've had those experiences, though. You see? So, anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that whole thing, but I just think it's quite important. You see? Now, the cool thing about these transits happening in March is a bunch of the stuff in Pisces is going into your 1st house, right? So it's like, wow, Saturn's in my 1st house, which kind of sucks. Although it's good for losing weight, it does help us lose weight. It's sort of like, ooh. I mean, I had 6-pack abs when Saturn was in my 1st house. Not cool. Not cool. Now being on hormones, like I have to fight just to keep my belly the size it is. And it's like, ugh. I just want to look good in a bikini in the summer. That's my primary concern, you see. But anyway, you're going to have Venus enter in Pisces. When's that? Like, what, March 20 something? March 11th. March 11th is when Venus enters Pisces and your 1st house. So that's going to feel quite nice, right? Venus has been in my 1st house for a little bit. And that's when I met this wonderful person, you know. And I was feeling extra pretty. I was feeling extra, you know. You know. So Enjoy it, because when Venus goes to our first house, especially an exalted Venus in Pisces, remember that Venus is exalted in Pisces. It feels like, we sparkle, we shimmer like gasoline, you know, and are just as toxic, right? Mars is going to enter in, though, a little bit after. Mars enters Pisces at the end of March, like March 22nd. And when that happens, that's going to be your first house. You're all of a sudden going to, right, get a bunch of energy going, So it's good. It'll feel good after having Mars in your 12th house, which is like agitated isolation, self-destructive habits, right? That kind of thing. When Mars goes into the first house, it's like, oh, yay, I've got all this energy. But then we act stupid with it, right? Sometimes we overstep our boundaries, either physically or mentally or emotionally with other people. And we can either hurt ourselves or hurt others, cause a bunch of issues that we didn't want to have, right? Just because we weren't paying attention, right? Either we're being over domineering with people, or we're just being too impulsive, bashing our bodies into, walls and counters, getting bruises. Although mine were intentional. So anyway, we should go to the next person, though, because it's almost 6, right, Amber? Oh, I mean 6 my time, mountain time. Amber.
Kimberly donated.
Oh, Kimberly. And we do prioritize. Wait, what are they saying? Full on no. What are you talking about? You think the Palestinians are doing whatever? What? What are you talking about, Palestinians? We didn't mention Gaza. And yeah, we support liberation for Gaza here. So I'm not sure what you're on about, honey. I'm not sure what that person's on about. We do not support genocide here. Oh shit, I totally forgot
Oh,
the synastry. Jesus. Amber, I need you to help keep me on track. Fuck. That was my bad.
I was getting ready to say something.
You were? Well, you didn't say it quick enough. It's my fault. It's my fault for going off on a thing. But this is what I do. So
Okay,
just
I'll
keep me
scream
on
at you
task,
next time.
Amber. So this person has a 7th house sun, Ariel's partner. So I imagine they have some codependency stuff going on too. Both of them have a Cancer Mars. So, both of them have Cancer Mars. And what's Reclaimed Dasein saying about Palestine? What are they talking about? Anyway, they're probably gone by this time. Oh, and please like the stream, everyone. Please like the stream. Like the stream, subscribe. Like the stream. Like the stream. Yes, and tippers do come first because, because. So anyway, this person has a 7th house sun, like I said. Well, and the sun is conjunct Pluto. So I imagine they have some volatile emotions. And it's a very wide square, but the moon is square Pluto. So I imagine they have mommy issues and probably daddy issues too. So, but particularly mommy issues. So, particularly mommy issues is what I imagine. And I bet they probably grew up quite poor or something like that. And they may have sexual dysfunction with that 5th house Saturn, or issues with children. But quite typically, these people often just don't know how to have fun, right? They had to be parents to their parents growing up. Dysfunctional parents, typically, right? We see kids who never got to be kids. you know. It was relative to what you said. I don't know what you're fucking talking about, Reclaimed. I've done organizing, around all this stuff before. I worked with Palestinian student unions or groups back when I was living in California during the 2018 Great March of Return, when soldiers were literally laughing about picking off children. So, no, I don't know what you're fucking talking about, homie. And don't put fucking words in my mouth, please. Thank you. So, we've done nothing but support liberation for Gaza here. So, anyway, let's look at the synastry. Oh, this person has probably been divorced also. So, just so you know, Venus in the sixth house, especially in Virgo, tends to have had a divorce or had a breakup, a partner become an enemy or something like that, you see? So, daddy. Excuse me. You're so hyped for my happiness. Thank you. Now the synastry grid. And then, ooh, sugar. Oops. I'm not sharing anymore. Thank goodness. Okay. I'm going to share the synastry grid, though. Synastry grid. And Daddy, you've been here a long time. You don't have to stay here that long. I really appreciate it, though. Makes me feel really good. But I know you're a very busy person. So. But I do love it. I do love it. Stay as long as you want. I just don't want you to feel obligated. So. Great. So you don't know what I'm talking about. Dude, I'm not here for a personal fucking conversation with you. Like, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, So you don't know what I'm talking about. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. It sounds like you're talking about Israel, Palestine. And quite frankly, I'm over it. If you're trying to play gotcha shit on something you think I fucking said, dude, go fucking elsewhere. I'm sorry. I'm over it. Trying to do fucking astrology, yo. Anyway. Hi, Mylia. Okay, so the synastry grid here. I guess it's still loading, it says. But I look for the bad stuff right off the bat. I like to get that out of the way. So the first things I look at typically are squares and oppositions with Mars or Saturn or Pluto or Neptune, right? Or Neptune. And there's a couple interesting things. Now, Neptune's not necessarily bad in synastry, but there's the thing. And I actually have this aspect with this person. We have a Neptune thing too. And the only thing you have to be careful of is viewing each other through rose-colored glasses, you see? Because, oftentimes we can get too apologetic for people's bullshit, when we should be direct and upfront. Not saying that happens for sure, but it's something we often see, right? Where we get so wrapped up in the fantasy around something or the imagination around something that we fail to see, right, some of the ugly present or the ugly reality. And not that it's necessarily ugly, it's just the big thing is making sure that we face reality, and that we're very honest and direct and upfront. So I just noticed there was Neptune square the ascendant and Neptune square Mercury. And when I see Neptune square Mercury, I think of mixed messages, right? I think of unclear communication. So that's something you just have to work on, especially with that, right? Maybe it feels like your partner can't get their ideas across, or it feels to you like they keep sort of, giving you all this stuff and it doesn't make any sense. It's like you're speaking different languages, perhaps. So that's something just to be aware of, None of that's ever a deal breaker. In fact, I don't see anything that's like super terrible whatsoever. You know, but the Neptune, their Neptune square your ascendant and Venus also. That's the rose-colored glasses thing you see. So, Mars opposite the ascendant, right? Mars on the descendant, that's sort of like instant attraction. You know, me and my person, I have Venus trine their ascendant, and it was, you know, very quick, very quick. And Venus sextile the moon, we have that too. That's just very, very comfortable rapport. No, we have Venus sextile Venus. Sorry, not the moon. But this is a very comfortable rapport, right? This person feels like they can be secure and open with you, you see? And then anything that aspects the ascendant like this is really important. And having your sun aspect their ascendant, you know, it makes them feel seen, perhaps, or you add to their confidence in some way, you see? Excuse me. And then your sun, or their sun rather, trine your moon. It's a very lovely thing. You see, anything that aspects the moon is quite important because it shows, you know, how you're able to feel safe and secure together, right? And then Venus conjunct Venus. I mean, we always love to see that, don't we? You know? Now, one thing to be aware of is there's some Pluto dynamic here. So Pluto, and this is a wide orb, it's 6 degrees, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, you see, because Pluto is trine the moon. And this is wonderful because it feels like a very deep connection, you know, but it can be very difficult to break up because there's sort of this very deep relating that happens. And it feels like when we do try and break up that it's like a piece of us is getting ripped out, you know, because these are very, very, it's like growing roots into each other, these Pluto moon things, you know. Excuse me. Any other big stuff, and then we'll move on. Mars conjunct Mars and Venus conjunct Venus. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? We love to see it. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff here, you know. You know, there might be difficulties with communication in some ways, and then Mercury, wide orb once again, but trine the moon. You know, that's a lot better for a deep rapport, right? The moon person feels like they can communicate their feelings. And the Mercury person feels heard and valued and feels safer with the moon, you see? So anyway, stop share. Who's next, Ambi?
My phone is being on booty mode. Okay. So, let's do Kimberly next because she donated.
Oh, Kimberly.
And then
Kimberly.
after that, we have Sasha. I don't know if I'm botching her name pronunciation. If I am, I apologize. She also donated, so she will be next after Kimberly.
Okay, can you tell me Kimberly's information?
I sure can. It's January 8th, 1990,
Okay.
5:25 p.m.
Okay.
London, Ontario, Canada.
London, Canada. Not London,
Oh,
England, but
Canada.
oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot land, and all thy sons command. I had to learn the Canadian national anthem for International Day in 7th grade, and I never forgot it. Stupid, you know? It's like the old commercials. Scruff, McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. Right? We get these things stuck in our heads. Okay. Oh, Canada. our home and native land. True patriot love in all thy sons command. And before anyone accuses me of supporting the Canadian government or something, shut the fuck up. Yes, we know how terrible they are to First Nation people in Canada. I have lots of Canadian friends and lots of Canadian clients. Lots and lots. I have tons of Canadian clients, Australian clients, New Zealand clients, UK clients. It's like the whole fucking Commonwealth is all up in my shit, yo. You know, I might as well have King Charles come visit. Although the Commonwealth doesn't really support the monarchy so much anymore, you know. But you guys don't care about this shit either. We're gonna share my screen for Kimberly. Kimberly, you've got me wrapped around your finger. Mm. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it says it's loading. Is it loading? Anyway, I'll just start talking. But look, Jupiter in the first house. Such a big personality, right? Just walk in the room and totally shake everybody up. Everyone knows you're there. Hey, everybody. Right? Hi, Kimberly. You know. And it's an exalted Jupiter too. For you, Jupiter rules. I should say it. The sixth house and fuck is Pisces. And the ninth house. I'm so sorry. When you have the ninth house ruler in the first house, oftentimes it gives you a spiritual bent starting as a kid, you know. I mean, it's the people that start asking the big questions really young, isn't it? I mean, maybe I'd like to know how you did in university, or if you have anything to do with academia, if you have any advanced degrees or something like that. But the first thing I often think of is the whole spiritual dimension, you see. People who are quite mystical, you know. I have Saturn in the ninth house. It's like, show me the truth, show me the money, right? But Jupiter ruling the ninth house and being exalted in the first is sort of like a closeness, either with a spiritual path or having that be a big part of your life in some way. So I don't know. But I would hope it would be, because you have a similar configuration to one of our other homies here, which is the Chiron in the first house and the Saturn in the seventh house, you see? And Saturn conjunct the sun, just like we're having right now, and in Capricorn, right? So there's a lot of difficulty here. There's a difficulty opening up to people, and a 12th house moon, you see. 12th house moon often has difficulty with its own mental health issues, addiction sometimes, right? But I wonder if you're involved in the medical field in some way, right? Because you have Mars ruling the 10th house and in the 6th. Now, sometimes we see people in the service industry. We see people like veterinarians, you know, who deal with animals, right? Because the 6th house is also small animals and pets and stuff. It's our subordinates. It's also our staff. So if you're a manager and you have Mars in the 6th house, your staff probably don't like you very much. I have Venus in my 6th house. And when I was the manager, my staff loved me. And they cried when I left. Yeah. Well, at one of the places I worked at, you know.
And Frankie, I'll cry if you ever leave me.
Well, darling, I'm not going to leave you. Okay? I need to yell at somebody. I'm kidding, Amber. I love you. You know I love you.
In my defense, you have cats to yell at.
I do have cats to yell at, and I yell at them frequently. You know.
Speaking of, one's on the bed right now.
Where? Oh, you mean him over there?
Yes.
Is that Pollux? Pollux. He's so out right now. Like he's dreaming. And you know when you could tell cats are dreaming when they're doing like the, you know, thing? Hold on 1 second. Saturday, yes. Sorry, that was my daughter. I'm on live. Okay. Okay. I just have to respond to my baby daughter. I mean, she's almost a teenager baby, but she's always my baby. Anyway, I often think of people who've um the good thing about Mars in the sixth house, though, is these people can get shit done. You know, I bet you have a great work ethic. I bet you know, you have a certain amount of discipline. You see, and you might have this hyper independent bent where you feel like you have to do everything on your own. And it might be hard to get close to people with Sun conjunct Saturn in the seventh house. But at the same time, it's a pretty wild stellium, isn't it? That's wild. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 planets. Excuse me. But when you see this sort of thing, fucking hair, you think of people who, put up walls. But at the same time, there's like an underlying desire to connect. And it's terrifying, especially also being an aqua Venus. Oh, your Venus is conjunct my ascendant. You'd probably fall in love with me too. I'm kidding, half kidding. But you see, Venus in Aquarius has a reputation for being a bit aloof or having a hard time connecting. I love Venus in Aquarius because I'm strange as heck. But oftentimes it needs space. So you see, there's this struggle in your chart between space and independence and closeness and connection. And they seem hard to reconcile. I mean, you have this big whole opposition thing. It's like your chart is one big opposition. You even have the moon opposite Mars. So I take it mom was sort of, kind of thing. Overreactive, you see? And I wonder if dad passed away, or I wonder if dad was involved in some shady dealings. Because the eighth house is often criminal behavior, or maybe dad was an accountant. I don't know. But when we see the fourth house ruler in the eighth house, usually dad wasn't up to very good things. Not up to good things, you see. Saturn's going through your ninth house right now. So what you do believe, all that sort of stuff, is being shaken up. So I know you had all this maybe wonderful mystical proclivity here, a tendency to, right, to be interested in the divine or the other world, or the other realm. And Saturn going through your ninth house here, sort of deconstructing that. It's forcing you to be a bit more realistic and facing things that, perhaps facing parts of your beliefs that don't make sense to you anymore, right? Maybe you were looking at your own or looking out of your own lenses, and now you're seeing things a bit clearer. But this is a very uncomfortable thing because it can feel like our world is being ripped away oftentimes. When Saturn went through my ninth house, I was raised in a very conservative family. And as Saturn went through my ninth house, I let go of a lot of that sort of, especially economic ideology, right, that I was raised in. You see? And so we become aware of different types of thinking, and oftentimes our minds totally change, you see? So it's just something to be aware of with all this, right? I'm such a fool for you. Anything else I want to say? So Jupiter's going to go into your 12th house in May, around my birthday at the end of May. Jupiter's been in your 11th house, which hopefully has been good for you connecting with people, right? Making friends or putting yourself out there. We see social media, we see fans, we see people who elevate us or help with our success in some way. But when I think of Jupiter going through the 12th house, It's oftentimes where we need to seek therapy and stuff like that. And it could be a great time to do that. I think when Jupiter was in my 12th house at the time, what was going on then? I think there was marriage therapy at the end of it or something. Actually, I don't I think that was after that or before that. Jupiter going through the 12th house can be a very healing thing, though, you see. It can take us out of the limelight for a bit, make us want to be a bit more alone. It's not like you're alone all the time, but when Jupiter goes in our 12th house, we need more space for ourselves to process things, right? As I said, it's about healing. If there's any issues that you're addressing, right, involving mental health or substances or anything like that, right? Jupiter in the 12th house is the time to do it and prompts us to do it, you see. We better move on. It's 6:19. Okay, who's next, Amber?
Sasha is
Sasha.
Sacha.
Sacha. Oops, excuse me. Oh God, I should have been covering my mouth. What was the date?
Hold on, I have to yawn. You passed it on to me. Okay.
What?
I had to yawn too. You passed it to me.
Oh,
Oh
oh,
six,
sorry.
June 23rd,
June 20.
1993.
So we have a Cancer.
Same year my spouse he was born in.
1993.
Mm-hmm.
And
Kirkcaldy, Scotland,
what time?
UK. Oh, 7:19 p.m.
Okay.
Kirkcaldy,
Is it
Scotland.
K
Yes.
I
RK.
Kirk?
Let me double check the comment just to be sure. Kirkcaldy. Kirkcaldy.
I could not understand what you just said.
Kirkcaldy. So Kirkcaldy. Scotland.
Caldy. Kirkcaldy. Okay.
Yeah.
And where was it again? Oh, Scotland. Okay, there it goes. It came up. I'm such a fool for you. You've got me wrapped around your finger. Okay. Sagittarius rising. Lovely. We love to see it. Oh my God. They have a 17-degree Taurus Venus, which is the exact same as Madonna. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh, I'm yawning. Excuse me. But we see a 4th house Saturn. Oh yeah, Sasha. Now reading Sasha. I have a bunch of Scottish clients, but there's one in particular. God, why can't I remember her name right now? God, why can't I remember her name? Oh, it's gonna kill me. But I always would do her accent back to her when I was doing readings. It was funny. Anyway, 4th house Saturn. It's very difficult, you know. Oftentimes it's an absent or abusive father. And you're in the midst of your Saturn return right now, sweetheart. Right? Now you have a very early Saturn, right, in Pisces, 0 degrees. But this whole transit, the whole time Saturn is in Pisces, is still your Saturn return, as far as I'm concerned. the whole time it's transiting your fourth house. So this is an interesting time of life because you're having to face a lot of this stuff from childhood. You don't have an accent anymore. Just sound northern. I'm just playing with you, Sasha. Don't worry. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. So, abusive father. Yes, we fled from England from. Yeah, I mean, that's the fourth house Saturn. But something is probably going on right now, right? Something is probably going on right now that has to do with that father situation or that past something, because that's something you're coming to terms with during this whole transit, you see. A lot of it probably has to do with learning to be your own home and making your own space. Eventually, you have to be your own daddy in a way. I mean, I have someone that I call daddy, right? But ultimately, we are our own masters. And the thing about, you know, these father issues or mother issues or parental issues is that we carry them around with us and they keep on speaking in the back of our fucking heads and directing the paths we take, the choices we make. You see? I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I just saw what you said of what kind of abuse it was. And I'm so sorry, sweetheart. So, but you see, all of this right now you're going through is forcing probably a lot of the stuff to come out. You have an eighth house sun, right? And Sun trine Saturn, which is quite interesting. And all of that coupled with the first house North Node, right? Learning to be your own home. Wherever you are, that's where you are home. And the eighth house Sun learns how to take trauma and to turn it into bridges, right? Because our pain and suffering can build a bridge into other people's hearts. You see? You see? Now, Saturn trine the Sun, though. On the other hand, this is a marvelous thing to have because it indicates people, right, who can direct themselves and be self-directed. In the first house North Node, as it approaches its late 30s, it's going to be more about learning to be your own person, learning how to be your own master, learning how to focus on yourself, to cultivate a sense of confidence and esteem, because the first part of life is typically lived for other people. And we're attracted to, relationships that might not be good for us, where we feel like we need to submit ourselves, and not in a good way, but we get taken advantage of, and we allow ourselves to be that way because we think that we're going to find some sort of solace or peace through others, and it doesn't happen. And it gives us terrible daddy issues, right? I mean, I've got parental issues myself, and I'm so sorry you've dealt with all this, but as I said, our pain and suffering can be a bridge into other people's hearts. And it sounds like a fucking Hallmark card. I know. But it's true. It's true. And everyone wants to tell eighth house sons their secrets. I bet everyone probably tries to confide in you. And you know why? Because they feel safe with you. I bet you a nickel to a hole in a fucking donut that that's true. That people feel safe with you. The difficult thing, though, right? Yeah, she says definitely. And the eighth house sun kind of people act like little therapists sometimes, you see. Everyone wants to, dump their stuff on them. So, but the other thing I'd be interested in is like if you ever had, well, I don't want to go there. Never mind. I don't want to go there. But when we see a sixth house Venus, oftentimes we've been divorced or we get divorced or our partners become our enemies or they had, right? And I bet you've been attracted to the bad boy. The bad boy. You know who the bad boys are, right? The boys who are smoking cigarettes behind the bathroom, you know, smoking cigarettes behind the bathroom. I shouldn't have said anything, Sasha, but Sasha says go there. Again, the eighth house ruler thing and planets being in the eighth house. I just think about, yeah, and Sasha says she's never been married. She was born in 1993. I'm not surprised, but just something that comes up. I bet you're very good with animals, Sasha. I bet animals love you, whether or not you love them. But I bet you love animals. I bet they love you. And yes, the bad boys, because the seventh house ruler in the eighth house. Let's see. Seventh house ruler in the eighth house. But when I said go there, I was thinking about death stuff, because and I'm sure you faced death in your life, but we don't have to focus on that right now, you know. You have Pluto opposite Venus, you obsessive bitch, you. Oh my gosh, you want to sink your claws into these boys. Sink your claws. And then you want to devour them. You want to eat them whole, right? You're like a serpent queen. Yeah. Oh, you are rescuing a dog. Very nice. And Jupiter's been in your sixth house, you see. So of animals. But we better move on to someone else. We better move. Oh, I should tell you one thing at least. You lost a few friends. Yeah, that's what I was sort of getting at, the death thing. You're a nymph. You're a nymph. I want to know how you mean that. Like you're a water spirit or you're just very, very into sex. A man too corrupt. Too corrupt. I had no clue I would be so submissive for someone. And it feels so much better. Okay. So let's stop sharing and move on to the next person. Who's next, Ambi?
I'm trying to see if this person's still in the comments, just so. Mm, okay, I guess we can come back to them if you'd like to. Would you like to come back to them?
Are they not in the comments?
No.
Okay, so yeah, we'll come back to them if they chime back in. So who's next then?
Ariel,
Ariel. Which Ariel is that? Is it with the two L's or one L?
it's the one L.
The
It's
one L.
normal Ariel. It's normal Ariel, not Ariel B.
It's the Little Mermaid Ariel. Ah, ah. Okay, what's their birthday?
June 19th, 1993,
Okay, time.
11:37 a.m. Santa
City.
Clara, Santa Clara, California.
No
You
way.
know where that's at.
I know where Santa Clara is. Santa Clara is like, it's just south of Magic Mountain, Six Flags. And I had an ex who was from the Central Valley, like Bakersfield, Kern County, all that sort of stuff. And we'd always, stop in Santa Clara for gas. Always stop in Santa Clara for gas. Okay. Oh, oh, oh. So we have a Virgo rising. Why does it take so fucking long to load this shit, yo? What's up? Oh my God. Oh my mom. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, Sasha says sex maniac. So you're like me. I'm a sex maniac. Yes, I am. I sure am. I like sex. Yes, I do. Oh my goodness. Oh, we have a new moon baby. Look at that. Just like you, Amber, new moon baby.
Just like me.
Just like you, but it's a Gemini new moon. A Gemini
Mm.
new moon.
No offense to Gemini moons, but I have to make my joke. Can I make my joke?
So make your joke.
Y'all's y'all's attention span is not longer than 3 minutes. No offense. My spouse next to me is a Gemini moon. It's true. You can deny it if you want.
Yeah, it's a bit like being a goldfish, isn't
Really is.
it? You know, like don't forget how to breathe. Anyway, I make fun of Gemini Moon. I'm like, yo, Gemini Moon, how you gonna double book yourself and bail on both homies? You know, it's the flaky thing. Although I've known plenty Gemini Moons, or at least a few that weren't flaky, but you know, it's the stereotype. They change their minds really quick, you know. Tara Bradley says, aren't we all serious question? Aren't we all what, my darling? Aren't we all what? Please let me know, aren't we all what? Anyway, they have the shortest attention span. Ooh, look, we have another Taurus Venus, and it's conjunct all the other Taurus Venuses that we've seen so far today. Hi, Indigo. Indigo Montoya. You kill my father. Prepare to die. So, anyway. Saturn in the seventh house, once again, and a Pisces Saturn. We have so many 1993 babies. So you're in your Saturn return too, Ariel. Ariel. And Saturn going through your seventh house, oftentimes it can strain relationships, right? Or it can create commitments. Like I believe I moved in with my ex at when Saturn was in my seventh house. It's usually when we make big commitments or when commitments end. So if you're with someone, you could see that relationship get way more committed during this cycle. Or you could see that relationship get strained, right? Because you have the hyper independence thing probably too, like Saturn in the seventh house tends to have. You see? Your mom called, well, you just missed a bunch. You just missed a bunch, sweetheart. Anyway, I was talking about Saturn returns because everyone here seems like they were born in 1993. 10 years after me. And as I said, Saturn in the seventh house by transit tends to strain relationships, typically because we've cultivated a sense of like hyper independence, which you probably already have. And then what happens is, you know, our partners feel neglected or like we don't need them or whatever. But the other thing that happens too, on the flip side of that, is commitments deepen. And I mentioned that, you know, an ex-partner and I think moved in together when Saturn was in my seventh house. And that was someone I was with for many years. I mean, well, 12 years, but you see, and so that's a pretty significant commitment. So you're looking at that kind of stuff happening right now. And new moon babies are oftentimes quite naive, you know, they're sort of just bursting on the scene. They're impulsive, right? They're sort of childlike in a way, right? They're very active, but it's easy to take advantage of them, you know? It's easy to take advantage of them. I gotta stop looking at the chat. I have a horrible attention span. Stop looking at the chat. Stop it, Saturn girl. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Mars in the 12th house, ruling your 8th house and your 3rd house. So I wonder if you have a sibling who has a very difficult situation with mental health or substances, or maybe a sibling that you never knew existed. Like if your dad had a secret thing going on. Doesn't necessarily have to be any of that, but when I see the third house ruler in the 12th house, I often think the first thought is siblings with mental health issues or substance issues. Or you may not even have any siblings, so I don't know. But um and Venus in the 9th house in rulership, so sweet. And you're probably a mystical type too. You know, the type of people who have like that sense of their spirituality and the path and their spiritual practice and all that's very important to them. Meanwhile, I have Saturn in the 9th house and I'm like, everyone's full of shit. Let me find out the truth. But Venus in the 9th house is also very sapiosexual, right? Attracted to smart people, attracted to intelligent people, attracted to deep people. And perhaps even attracted to foreign people, people from other cultures or countries. And with the 7th house ruler in the 2nd house, right, Jupiter here, I think you need someone who's secure financially, someone who you don't have to worry about resources with. So anyway, we talked about Saturn right off the bat. Virgo. So the eclipses are now going between your 2nd and 8th house. So the one happening here in April is going to be in Aries in your 8th house. And eclipses in our 8th house, they can have very good or very difficult expressions. On the one hand, you could get a surprise gift you weren't counting on. You could have a little influx of other people's money or resources that helps you out in a situation. Alternatively, though, it might represent a big loss. Usually it's financial in some way, right? But these are also new beginnings. So this whole cycle that started in 2023 and continues throughout 2024 is about your material resources. It's about money, right? And so the one that happens in October, hopefully that is when you see improvement in your financial situation. And remember that the effects of eclipses continue for the subsequent 6 months, right? More or less until the following one. So it just gives you some perspective on these time scales, you see? But all this other swell stuff is moving through your 7th house, Like you're having Venus enter in there soon in a couple of weeks here, When Venus is in there, oftentimes we do meet new people. Venus often represents female influences. And unless you're gay or bisexual, that may or may not make sense. But it's pleasure and romance and all that stuff anyway, oftentimes, but aesthetic and enjoyment in general. It's just when we see her in the 7th house, it indicates developments in relationships. It's a time when we should, if you're with someone, these are like the date night times when Venus is in your 7th house, because then Mars is going to go at the end of the month into your 7th house and probably stimulate some bickering or some fights between you and your partner if you have one. You see? But we should move on to the next person, right, Amber? Is that true? Hey, Zoom user.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, sorry. I was looking for a natal chart reading just to make sure the person's still here, but I don't think they are. Did you want to talk about your transits tonight?
Did I want to talk about transits?
Hmm.
Yeah, is no one else here? What happened to
Not
that
that I
one?
see, unless you want to do the ones that were
Yeah.
after the closing window. Okay. Do you have Miss Colston stuff?
No, because the app closed and I lost everything. Well, let me see if I have it to open. Search all files. MZ. No, I need it again. What about that person that was
Okay.
talking all that shit?
They're gone.
Reclaiming Death or whatever their fucking name was.
They're gone.
Someone says, oh, Ariel says Modesto, California. Sex addicts. I'm not, well, I guess you could call me a sex addict, I guess. I don't know. It's a very healthy function. If I don't, you know, 3 times every day, I'm not a happy person. Mm. I just reconnected with my older brother after almost 20 years. That's amazing. That's amazing. Who's racist? What are they talking about? My mom apparently wants a reading. My mom's there. So we're apparently all racist, huh? I answered your
Ooh,
question, Tara Bradley says.
ouch.
Tara Bradley answered your question. What question? I'm sorry. Love all the love. I'm an ordained minister about to open a wedding business because it's love.
Oh, Mila just came back in. She's here.
Okay. I'm sorry, Tara. I don't know what you're talking about. Apparently, my mom was born in 1982, just a year before me. Okay, Milia then. We'll
Hmm.
do Milia, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's Mylea.
Okay. Oh, sex. It's not sex addiction, though, Tara. I just really enjoy it. I just really enjoy it. It's one of the big parts of my life. Okay, what's Milia's birthday?
August 18th, 1997, 2:26 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Milwaukee. 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 Tara's talking about sex addiction. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I'm a nympho too. I'm a nympho too. I'm a nympho too. Oh, here, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Oh, shit. Cancel. What the fuck, yo? Why does everything have to be such a pain in the fucking ass with technology? Anyway, so we have a Sagittarius rising with Pluto almost exact on the ascendant. You know, my daughter has Pluto on the ascendant. My new person has Pluto on the ascendant. I have Pluto square the ascendant. It's usually a life where we learn through being shattered. We have regular crises. We have regular crises. Okay, Tara, thank you. I'm just slow and like half paying attention to the chat. Sorry. Oh, Pisces moon, you poor baby. Pisces moon and moon square Pluto. Oh, you poor baby. Oh, you poor baby, Mylia. You have mama trauma, don't you? I have Mercury retrograde in my chart, so technology, but and you have Mercury stationing retrograde, Mylia. Mercury retrograde people, we're just a little slow. We're a little slow sometimes. Even though you have a wonderful Mercury, I'm sure you're very intelligent. Retrogrades also delay things. So the houses that Mercury rules would have those significations delayed for you, right? So, Mercury rules your seventh house and is in your 10th. Oh, hi, baby. Hi, baby. This is Castor. But being in your 10th year in retrograde might indicate that good relationships are in store, but just happen a little bit later. Maybe you don't really get into it with someone until your 30s. I don't know. But I would think that would bode very well for relationships, you see. It just perhaps means that things are delayed a little bit, or there's reversals, you see. But the same would go for your career too, because Mercury's very happy in their own sign, right? But stationing retrograde might make it a bit delayed. Like eventually you get into a very good, I want to say lucrative, but it's probably more modest than that. But you find a very good, solid career or whatever, perhaps in your 30s or something. Or anyway, it could be earlier, but that's just what it looks like sometimes. Yes, cat. And then you have a very unhappy Saturn, unfortunately, in the 5th house. That can oftentimes give trouble with childbirth if that's something that you're seeking. So just be aware of that. It doesn't negate childbirth whatsoever, because I've had lots of friends and come here, baby. Lots of friends who've had 5th house Saturns, cat, and still have had, children and all that sort of thing. But it can also indicate difficulties with that, like sometimes C-sections, gestational diabetes, I mean, things, little complications. But I bet you didn't have a childhood either, did you? You may have had to be a parent to your own parents. Usually it feels like we don't get to have fun as a kid. So as you get older, you need to learn how to have fun. You need to learn how to cut loose and all that sort of thing. You're going to have your Saturn return, though, in 2026. Right now, Saturn's going through your 4th house, right? So maybe this is straining things with you and your parents, because you are still quite young. What are you, 25, 20, no, 26, 27, 26, perhaps? And maybe you're not seeing eye to eye with your parents right now. Maybe they don't like what you're doing. Maybe you don't like them all in your business. But there's something being strained right now with you and your parents. When Saturn goes through your 5th house, that might be when I don't know what your plan is with kids, and I don't want to say anything in particular, but that could be when you make a decision about children's stuff. I don't know. So I typically say. But when your sun is in the 9th house, that's where the sun rejoices. These are often people who are very spiritual, involved in religion in some way. Back in ancient times, the sun in the 9th house was known as a philosopher, or what are they called? A prophet. a prophet, a philosopher, or a diviner. People are interested in astrology, in arcane or occult subjects. You see, the sun was God in ancient times, and the ninth house is the house of God. So this is a very sort of auspicious thing to have, and the sun in rulership too. So this is a very powerful part of your life. And I bet you've been interested in this stuff since you were quite young. Now, Mars is very happy too, but Mars is in the 12th house. Mars rules the 12th house and the 5th house. So anyway, I mean, there's some difficulty around children, that sort of thing. Probably, but Mars is very happy. So the well-dignified Mars makes all that stuff a lot better. You see, Mars in the 12th house, though, for us in our natal charts, oftentimes it indicates that we do have self-destructive patterns. You know, sometimes we're our own worst enemy. You know, we're doing things actively that end up thwarting us or hurting what we want to do in the end. So anyway, I haven't been watching the chat, so I don't know if any of that makes sense. I don't know if any of that makes sense. Ooh. I wonder. See, Saturn rules your 2nd and 3rd house. Do, 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 do. Your spouse is also a Sag rising. You keep saying your spouse, but y'all ain't married yet. Why you in a rush? Only thing it's good for is tax breaks anyway. Or if you're really religious, I guess it's a thing, you know, like, we got married in the eyes of God, and our relationship is ordained by God. So we don't have to feel dirty when we get down, as long as it's only for children. You know, that's what the fucking Republican Party wants. They only want us to have sex to make children, which is absolutely stupid. Because I can't stop smelling my daddy's shirt. And I already have children. I mean, a child, but she's a Gemini, you know.
Frankie, I need to defend myself here. If I want to go and marry my man, that's my business. You let me live. I love these Mars and Cancer people, okay? There's so many of them.
You want to marry multiple Mars and Cancer people?
No, just this one right here that's sitting next to me.
Oh, well, then why would you say you love multiple Mars and Cancer people?
No, I just love Mars and Cancer people in general.
Oh,
And Cancer Venus people too.
I
Especially
wasn't
ones
saying
with the
anything. I'm
Gemini
just like, why are
sign.
you in a rush? I got fucking, I'm just saying, divorce sucks, you know. And the only thing marriage is really good for is legal stuff, really. I mean, I guess it's symbolic too and all that. You know, I'm just probably jaded. You know,
You're very jaded because you got divorced.
it's one of the best things that ever fucking happened to me was divorce. You know, I mean, I'm serious, yo, because like life started for me just recently, just over the past few years. But thank goodness, because I had a wonderful child, you know. I'm just saying, I just don't recommend marriage because it's a real pain in the ass to get out of. Especially if you commingle finances and all that sort of thing, you know. There's a whole, you know, what's her name? Cameron Diaz. She's telling us all the time now that or what does she say? She's advocating for married people to live in separate houses. And I'm like, yes. Like, yeah. There would be a lot less divorce if married people lived in at least separate rooms, if not separate houses, you know. And quite frankly, the history of marriage and all this sort of stuff has to do with the subjugation of women, right? Because marriage and it's all has to do with labor and reproducing labor. Because going back to ancient Mesopotamia, when religion was becoming a thing, it was all during the advent of farming, right? When people were starting to settle and become agricultural. And guess what? Fucking farming sucks. It's hard work. So we see the proliferation of religious ideology, right? Which taught people that there's a certain class of priests and whoever, right, that don't have to work because they're very busy working for the gods and talking to the gods. Meanwhile, the rest of you need to, plow, drop seeds, break your back in order to feed everyone, right? And to keep the society going or the settlement going, right? And you had to control women's bodies in some way, starting even back then, because they were the ones who were having the children. And children are laborers, they're reproduced workers. That's why you see the Republican Party have this big interest in abortion and conservatives in general, because that party really represents, and both parties do, but especially that one, represents the interests of big capital and big business. And their interest involves having lots and lots of workers. And COVID disrupted a lot of that, right? It showed workers that they had more power. And there were some social safety net things that got introduced to us during that time. And then they were all taken away. And when that happens, people get very upset, you see? And if you look back throughout the Middle Ages and such like that, the persecution of witches had a lot to do with this. It did. Because so-called witches and all these sorts of designations had to do with women who were involved in medicine at the time, right? Who knew how to, terminate a pregnancy with herbs. And they couldn't have that at the time. And by they, I mean the lords, the landlords, the ruling lords, the ones who needed to exploit the labor of serfs or whatever in order to keep their shit going. And that's why you had a lot of these women being persecuted and executed. You see? It all really is economic. Even religion is economic. And that's what a materialist analysis teaches us. Ultimately, these people, right, they whine about religion, and they probably do believe in it to a certain extent. But a lot of it has to do with self-interest and class interest. And it's about reproducing workers that you don't have to pay very much, right? So we see the same struggle with marriage and childbirth and work happening from the dawn of human civilization until now. It's still a big fucking political issue, isn't it? You see? And this is big when it comes to astrology. Because Pluto and Venus, in their little dance over and over again, seem to correlate with developments in women's bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. And bodily autonomy doesn't just include reproductive rights, it includes trans rights. We're represented by Venus too. You see? So when you realize, or when you see that sort of analysis of power relations in history, things get a lot more clear, right? The battle is not a spiritual battle, it's a material battle. It's about who gets influence and who gets the stuff, right? And right now, it's based on financial power, right? People who have money. Before, it used to be title and status. Like if you were in the clergy, or you were the king, right? Or in the aristocracy. And so in a way, right, the system we have now was a development beyond that. And now we're hitting a brick wall again. Because the people who benefit from the current economic system will do everything to keep it from changing. You see? And that's why trans people are being demonized. Because every second you spend worrying about trans people is a second you're not spending worrying about why your pay is so low, why your rent is so high, right? Why you can't get health care, education, and all these sorts of things. It's the same thing that happened in Germany in the 1930s. That's what the Nazis did. You know, no, it's not the rich people. It's not them. No, it's immigrants and trans people and gay people, right? It's always what they got to blame stuff on. You see, and there's a straight out assault on women. And again, this is all relevant to the astrological stuff because this goes back into the times when astrology was invented or first became a thing in ancient Mesopotamia, right? Which is around the same time farming was becoming a thing. And astrology had to do with omens, you see. There was no causation going on. There's an ancient Mesopotamian document from the Neo-Assyrian Empire. I want to say like between 700, I think around 700 BCE. It's called the Diviner's Manual. It's a clay tablet with cuneiform written on it. And it says earth and sky are interconnected, right? That omens or portents, signs in the sky, indicate events on earth, and vice versa, right? That they were interconnected and reflective of each other. It's not like invisible fucking beams are being shot to you by Jupiter. That's not, there's no evidence of that. So why would you go out on a limb to make shit up? Like write fan fiction on your own fucking time. Excuse me. So anyway, it's all important stuff because it puts the history of astrology in perspective. And we can understand. I come at astrology from a materialist perspective. I'm an empiricist. I don't completely dismiss spirituality or spiritual realities. I just don't care. Because what's really having an influence in the world and on people is our material conditions. So when people go off whining about fucking twin flames and aliens and all these sorts of things, I'm like, yo, you got to worry about the bills, worry about the food, worry about your children. All the other shit is a big distraction. And astrology can be a very useful tool, very practical tool, very material tool for all these things. Now, ultimately, it's a tool for self-development. And the framework it was developed in, or rather, the philosophical basis for ancient astrology, right? Hellenistic, we'll say, from ancient Greece in the Hellenistic world. The philosophical basis for that was Hermeticism, right? And Hermetic philosophy is about, right, the evolution of consciousness. And I hate that word, but the expansion or the development of consciousness through various stages or whatever on its path of return back to its source. And that idea pervades all this. So when you understand astrology in that context, whether or not you really believe in all the mythos, what's very obviously running through the whole thing is the idea of self-development, of self-maturation, of learning to master yourself. Right? Astrology was very fatalistic in ancient times. And that's partly why Christianity got so big, because it was a reaction to the idea of fate. You see? There's a wonderful quote by Vedius Valens, the first century astrologer. And I'm just going to summarize because I don't remember the whole thing. But he says God gave us this science to be able to discern and tell our futures. Not so that we can change it necessarily, but so that we can learn to take the good without overly rejoicing and take the bad without being overly depressed, learning to be detached, what he called soldiers of fate. Excuse me, soldiers of fate. He was talking about self-mastery, learning detachment. He was a Stoic. You see, Stoic philosophy also permeated this whole thing. And the idea behind Stoic philosophy, a lot of it is learning to take whatever comes, right? That you were allotted, right, your fate in life, and your duty was to handle your destiny. You see? So there was a sense of, I mean, I'm sort of comparing it a little bit to Buddhism, you know, because there's a sense of having to take whatever comes with a sense of spontaneity. But you see, these were the underlying philosophies behind astrology. And they were applied to very material concerns and material times. And there was a whole spiritual dimension, yes, but spirituality was way more material. You know, they had gods of everything, god of the corn, god of baskets, you know, because none of these things were separate, right? There wasn't an inner and an outer necessarily. That didn't happen until, well, in ancient Mesopotamia, not so much. But it became a thing in ancient Greece, right? Became a thing with Plato and all that. This whole division, right? Anyway, now we've gone a little bit over. But the point of all that is really important, you know, because it's about situating ourselves in time and space for context, right? Because we're trying to understand where we've come from and where we're going and what our current conditions are. And guess what? We can look at these cycles in astrology to get a pretty good fucking idea of what it's going to look like. And here we are at another big momentous time with Pluto and Aquarius on my fucking ascendant. Uranus about to go into Gemini. Neptune and Saturn about to be conjunct and enter Aries. You see, these are all extremely momentous things that have coincided with big historical events in humanity. But all you motherfuckers care about is, you know, the Lionsgate bullshit or some bullshit that people talk about. I see so much nonsense that these astrologers post. And yeah, I post about my relationships and my personal life. Boo fucking who. But at least you get legit astrology from me. And not all this fucking nonsense. I mean, some of it's interesting. But you see, we have to be aware of these bigger cycles. Now I know it sucks to pay attention to difficult times. You know, and it sucks to see how these same transits coincided with some pretty wild shit. But we do, and it is our responsibility to pay attention and be aware of this stuff. Otherwise, it's going to eat you up. It's not just going to bite you in the ass. It's going to eat the whole thing. I mean, but y'all need to hear this because we're coming into some pretty wacky times. Uranus going into Gemini has coincided with some big events in the United States. The Civil War, the Revolutionary War, World War II, fascism. You see? Neptune conjunct Saturn, right? The Russian Revolution. the death of Stalin, the fall of the Berlin Wall. These are big political events, and we're having all of them coincide for the first time, right, in 250 years. So I'm only saying all this so that people can appreciate the gravity of it, and that astrology is not just some parlor trick. Being a student of history and someone who's very keen on following world affairs and current events, these things are a lot more obvious to me, and even then I have to, do a lot of research sometimes to notice the patterns. And that's why I do it in these videos, why I try and make these historical connections. Because I really believe, I don't believe in anything really, but I think it's my ethical duty to present these things. And I think it's fucking interesting. It is interesting stuff. But anyway, now I'm just being preachy. And I really appreciate everyone coming. I know Amber does too. And y'all needed to hear my little sermon at the end. I thought it was more important to say that stuff than it was to talk about March transits, because I can do that later and I can record myself talking about that. But anyway, are you good, Amber?
Yes, I'm fine. Are
Do you
you
have
good?
anything you want to say?
I hope everyone has a good day, night, evening, wherever you are.
Because we have lots of friends from Australia, right? Old
Stay
Zealand.
safe. Stay
Stay,
safe. Hold your loved ones tight.
gonna grab my baby, gonna hold her tight, grab some afternoon delight. Anyway, well, I love you, sweetheart. And I love the rest of you
We
too.
love you.